with that lens, and then you return back to Virginia. What was your initial thought? I mean, so you moved into the role that you're in now. Are you like, oh, easy day, or did you view this as, wow, we've got a lot of work to do?
Yeah, so I think, for me, and so I guess to take a step back, I was also kind of like doing a lot of consulting at the same time. And so the pandemic kind of, it lighted a fire underneath me to kind of do more. I felt like, working throughout the system, it felt highly bureaucratic. There wasn't much that was happening at a large scale, right? Change inside the system is marginal at best. And so some friends and I got together, we created this group called the Nationhood. It was more of a passion project. This is kind of post George Floyd's murdering. And so we got together, wanted to create something to do, right? Because at the time we were like, oh, well, there's still the pandemic. We all felt like we were a little bit aged out to do protesting because we were like, okay, like, how do we fit into this? And so we created this civic engagement guide called the Liberation Toolkit. And it basically like walked folks through like how to really leverage their local elected officials to rally around change through policymaking. And so that got a lot of views, and it ended up actually us working with this one agency called Maestra, and they're a social impact agency, and they do a lot of social impact campaigns that are geared towards like a holistic approach to like DEI, right? So I think the buzzwords now has been DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, but then we talk about social impact. So if you create a program, like what are the ways in which we're actually creating more of a holistic approach to like programming? And so one of the things we had the chance to do was work through a bunch of different filmmakers. So one of the films was called Time. This is through Amazon Studios. And so the film itself was about mass incarceration in this family. It documented them and their struggle with being incarcerated in Louisiana, which has the highest prison population in the world. And so we wanted to really provide more of a roadmap, laying the foundation of mass incarceration. So we developed this campaign that included like this education toolkit, also like this like site that kind of like captured folks's kind of time loss. And so the film was kind of launched in addition to the film. And so we were doing a lot of that work, which is kind of similar to DEI. But to get back to your question, as far as like, what does it look like when I came back? It was like, how do I take that experience, right, where we're building out these campaigns and these different type of initiatives, programs, and apply it here in a real way?
I mean, it seems like there are a ton of initiatives out there to try to combat this, to improve it. As you were talking about this, I thought about something over the last few months, which is the Rooney Rule from the NFL, which is trying to hire more black head coaches. They just done a terrible job of that overall. I think everyone would admit that. Pete Carroll came out last week, I guess, and he's a head coach of this Seattle Seahawks. I think he still is there. And he was like, this is never going to change until basically the old white guys figure this out and start hiring people that don't look like themselves. Like, there's things in place that are knowing with what I just said. And there's tons of other programs and initiatives out there with stuff in place to try to combat DEI and to improve it. It just doesn't seem like the needle is moving in a lot of these things, even though things are in place to do it. Like, in your opinion, what is it going to take to actually start to see improvement on some of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that's been kind of framed, right, it's super polarizing, right? We have the left and the right. And so part of my work has been through this idea of like narrative change. Like, how do we use language that doesn't seem divisive, but then brings people together, right? Because we're better together than we are apart. And so the way that like both sides have kind of framed the debate around DEI and, most recently too here, critical race theory, right? It's about how do we tell our history in a real way that folks can understand that people of color who have been marginalized through systemic oppression, racism in this country have been left behind, right? That's a fact. But at the same time, us getting resources and thinking about how we can have initiatives and programs that are geared towards ensuring that we have a diverse representation of what this country is made of doesn't seem, from a white person's perspective, that they're losing anything, right? This is a societal gain, right? And I think the way that it's currently being framed, it's particularly for white men, right? They're always feeling like they're the target, is that they're losing something, right? And so if we could frame it in a way of, this is actually the benefit for society as humans, right? Then I think that could actually get some more legs to stand on potentially. But I also think that like it actually just requires people to have conversations, right? And so like if you're talking to people who don't look like you, then you realize actually we have a lot more in common than we do different, right? And so how are we bridging difference along dialogue, right? And being in conversation, right? Creating, spaces where people can ask questions and, deliberately, right? And they may not know, they may not have the right framing or the right phrasing or the right language to use, but they're actually willing to learn, and they're like able to kind of be in conversation to kind of figure out how they could, view the world and through your lens.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially when I think about Hampton Roads as its own MSA. And I tell everyone, first question everyone always asks is, where is Hampton Roads? What is Hampton Roads? But once we get past that, the way that I describe it is, I'm like, it's the largest small town that I know about. I mean, a population of 1.7 million people, but yet it's still such a small town in the sense of, the group of people that are decision makers, so to speak, is a very, very small circle. And I think that there's a lot of people that are in these circles and decision makers that really don't want to see things change. And, and that could be based on a broad scope of things, whether if it's, we don't want to bring big tech companies in here because we want to keep population small, we want to keep classrooms small, whatever the case is. But it's interesting in the sense of how small town Hampton Roads continues to be.
And it even goes to the Eastern Shore too. I was talking to one of my cousins, and like, there was this whole redevelopment project they were thinking about building there, but like the town council voted against it because they want to keep it a very small town. They don't want a bunch of outsiders coming in. It's if y'all haven't been, we should go. I'll take you to all the best spots. But there's this sereneness to it that actually is really nice to be in a place where it just feels like, life is easy. There's not the hustle and bustle, and like folks over there like that. I mean, I like it too, but I think there's a balance in which we can kind of like provide additional resources for folks who live there, job opportunities that may not exist, but at the same time still keep it so that folks aren't getting displaced. So I feel like that's where the anxiety comes from, is this idea of displacement.
Well, and this is a broad statement, but I mean, people complaining about things that they're really just headlining. Like they're just reading a headline. They're not doing any research on, they're not seeing anything. And I remember the old city manager of Norfolk, Marcus Jones, told me a story once about how they saw a problem with Hampton Boulevard and too many tractor trailers, the 18-wheelers on it. And because they had blocked it in a certain amount of time, let's say from like 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., that was forcing everyone to be on those roads at a very specific amount of time. Mm-hmm. So their solution, through a ton of research and seeing this problem in other cities and how they fixed it, was to actually open up that time frame. So instead of having it being 6 hours, to have it be, let's say, 9 or 12 hours. And he said that so many people pushed back, or only a few people pushed back, but because they were the only ones that pushed back and there wasn't the opposite side, as a council, I guess they had to make a vote around something like that. But oftentimes people aren't even researching. They're just, they're reading 10 words. They're hearing one quote and they're saying, oh, that I feel this way because of this. And it's like, hold on, like this is actually going to fix your problem, allegedly. And, people don't even want to put in the research to do it. And, I'm not a big fan of headline and clickbait type of things, because I think it does get into the divisiveness of all of this stuff, when it's like, hold on, like, let's actually read the damn article to figure out like what this thing is about. I was actually talking about that today online a little bit, just the Great Recession. Is that what it's called? The Great Resignation. Mm-hmm. And but what's interesting to me is like, I feel like that's a clickbaity type of thing, because it's like, okay, so I'm sitting there thinking the Great Resignation, so everyone's quitting. Where are they working now? And all it is they're just going to another job. Well, you've done different jobs. You've told us that today. Like, yes, you moved around a different career, but like, is it really that different until you do some research into it and learn that actually what it sounds like is, yes, there are other people who are just banking on Bitcoin and making it be great.
And that was a joke.
That's what Tim's response was, right? But I look at that and I go, okay, like, I'm questioning this. I want to know about it. Please tell me your thoughts. And some people were like, yo, I moved careers. Okay, so really it's about, I had this career forever. I used to be a nurse and now I'm in IT. Like, let's just research a little bit more and stop trying to like headline stuff and clickbait stuff so that we
it's really more of a reset than it is
which is
resignation.
Fine. Okay, I don't want to be in that job anymore. I want to do something different. There's nothing the matter with that. Is it really that like alarming? But you read these articles and you see these headlines and you're like, wow, this is a big deal. People are still working. It's not like they're quitting their jobs, and never doing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
I digress.
Directly involved within our entrepreneurial community for years. And the most common question I get is, Tim, I want to get involved, but I don't know what events I should attend. Well, StartWheel eliminates that pain point because we consolidate all the events you should attend into a single calendar. Now you'll be in the know and see where to spend your time. Gone is the need to search multiple websites and calendars. Just head to startwheel.org and see for yourself. That's startwheel.org.